4:02 a.m., throw RA mobile. She was supposed to be asleep. She said she was asleep, but the green dot next to her name on Messenger blinked like a loaded gun. I stared at it. That tiny, glowing dot. Alive. Awake. Online. I checked the time again. 3:41 a.m. She told me she had a headache and was going to bed early. Took her tea upstairs. Closed the door gently. Kissed my forehead like I was furniture. That was 4 hours ago. I could have let it go. I wish I had. But curiosity is a knife, and I held the blade. I opened a blank browser window. Typed, how to fake Messenger status. Scrolled Reddit. Quora. Nothing convincing. Not unless she was using developer tools or scripting, which she definitely wasn't. She once called RAM, that thing in cars. No way she was faking it. She was awake. And not texting me. The search for a ghost. I clicked her profile. Nothing obvious. No posts. No likes. Just the dot. The dot. The dot. That bleeping dot. I opened my phone. Checked her location. Find My Friends showed her right here, upstairs. But that didn't help. He could be here too. We have a guest room. She could say he's her cousin. She said worse. I closed the app. Opened my laptop. Typed, Facebook download data. I know. It's low. But this is war. And in war, men crawl. I requested her archive. Didn't know the password. Tried again. Then I remembered. It was our anniversary date. Reversed. She said it helped her remember things backwards, like a palindrome. It worked. The download would take a few hours. Fine. I had nowhere else to be. Except, I heard footsteps. 3 steps, then stop. They weren't careful. They weren't sneaky. Just soft. 3 steps. Pause. Then the sound of a kettle filling. She said she went to bed 4 hours ago. Why would she be boiling water now? I stood in the hallway. Didn't say anything. I just listened. Her phone buzzed once. Then again. I couldn't make out the words, but her laugh. Her real laugh. The kind that makes her snort on the inhale. I heard that. From the living room. Not the bedroom. I backed up. Quiet. Like prey. My heel hit the coat rack and made it rattle. The laugh stopped. Silence. Then, the slow shuffle of slippers. The confrontation that didn't happen. She turned the corner holding a mug that said, Monday is canceled. Her face was flushed, but she acted like nothing was off. Oh, she said, you scared me. I didn't say anything. She asked why I was awake. I said I could ask her the same thing. She laughed, the fake one. The one she uses for bosses and waiters. Couldn't sleep, she said. You? Same. Then the kettle whistled. She said she already boiled it. I said it sounded like it just started. Her smile flickered, like a connection trying to re-establish itself. Must have clicked the button again by accident, she said. I nodded. Sure. We stood there for 5 seconds. Then 10. She said she was going back to bed. She walked past me, but the scent on her sweater wasn't her lotion. It was cologne, and not mine. Last thing before I go. I know I sound pathetic, like a stretched-out rubber band hoping to be whole again. But I swear I'm not crazy. I checked her phone screen when she put it down to rinse the mug. The name on her last message said, Sent to Archive. That's where he is. She's hiding him in plain sight. The archive. The green dot. The laugh. Something is happening, and I'm going to dig until it all rots in the light. It downloaded at 4:11 a.m. Her Facebook archive. Zipped folder, 938 megabytes. I opened it on my laptop with trembling fingers, not sure if I was searching for answers or permission to fall apart. You don't realize how much a person types until you see it all dumped into 1,000 HTML files. Every like, every sticker, every stupid heart reaction is time-stamped and preserved like amber around a mosquito. But I didn't care about her likes. I went straight to the folder labeled Messages. Inside, it was worse than I expected. The conversations were named by thread titles, usually the name of the person she messaged. I scrolled through people I knew. Her mother, her best friend, our neighbors, a few old coworkers. Then I found one that didn't belong. 1970 Blackbird. That was the thread name. No profile pic. Just that. No real name. Just a bird. I clicked it. My screen froze for a second. Then it loaded. The first message was from 10 months ago. That hit hard. 10 months. 10. I'd spent that time worrying about our grocery budget and her vitamin D deficiency, while she was busy messaging a faceless man about how she missed the way his breath sounded in her ear. 10 months. The earliest messages were playful. Innocent, almost. Jokes about music. The Beatles, obviously. A shared love of obscure 70s bands. She told him that she liked people who typed in lowercase because uppercase is aggressive. He called her soft chaos. She laughed in all caps anyway. But then came the photos. Not explicit, at first. Just her with her hair tied up, laying on the couch. A selfie from the balcony. A picture of her hand next to a wine glass. He replied with poetry. Real stuff. Like he either read Neruda or stole it from Tumblr in 2014. I couldn't tell. But she ate it up. Called him her favorite hour. Said talking to him felt like sitting in a thunderstorm without getting wet. What did that even mean? I stopped breathing when I saw the name Ephraim. That's me. She was talking about me. He's sweet. Predictable. He doesn't hurt me. But I don't feel real when I'm with him. There it was. My whole worth boiled down to a shrug and a safe space. I wasn't exciting. I wasn't electric. I was a blanket. She said I made her comfortable, like a well-worn hoodie. They joked about hiding things. About what would happen if I ever found out. She said I never checked her messages. I was too gentle to dig. She told him I was too trusting, too routine. Called me her routine. I had to stand up. I walked to the sink and stared at the dishes we used that night. The lasagna pan. Our plates. Her wine glass. The same one I saw in the picture. It was still there, faint lipstick print on the rim. I wanted to scream, but instead I just rinsed it. I rinsed it. Like an idiot. When I came back to my laptop, I was hoping maybe it would all vanish. Maybe it was a stress dream. But no. The thread was still there. And the worst was yet to come. The last message in the thread was sent just 3 hours ago. While I was asleep. While she told me her head hurt. While she walked past me in that damn hoodie she stole from my college days and said good night, love you. She messaged him. Tonight felt risky. But thrilling. I needed that. You always know when to show up. He's getting quieter lately. I think he suspects something. I leaned back in my chair. That sentence was a hammer. I'd been walking around this house thinking I was losing my grip on reality, wondering if I was just anxious or paranoid. Meanwhile, she knew. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't wondering. She knew I knew something, and she didn't stop. She liked it. Risky. Thrilling. Needed. I didn't sleep. How could I? I sat there staring at the screen, rereading every line. Like maybe the letters would change if I begged hard enough. But they didn't. They stayed sharp, echoing across the silence of our house. At 6:12 a.m., she walked downstairs. I hadn't moved. She rubbed her eyes, hair messy, sweater sleeves over her hands like always. Looked exactly like the girl I fell in love with. And for the first time in months, she smiled at me. Like, genuinely. Still up? She asked. I nodded. Yeah. You okay? She asked. And all I could think was, how good she is at this. At pretending. At floating through two worlds without tripping. I said, just couldn't sleep. She offered to make coffee. I said no. She kissed my cheek and walked into the kitchen. The green dot is still there. Even now. Blinking. Mocking. Alive. The thing nobody tells you about heartbreak is that it doesn't start with screaming. It doesn't explode. It's not glass against walls or crying into your steering wheel. Not at first. Real heartbreak starts in silence. Long, unnatural silence. The kind that buzzes in your ears like static, even when the room is dead still. I didn't speak to her that morning. Not really. I nodded. I stirred my cereal like it might whisper answers if I kept the spoon moving. She made pancakes, like it was a Sunday morning in 2018. Blueberry ones. My favorite. Or at least, they used to be. I don't even remember if I ate them. We sat across from each other at the table we bought secondhand the year we got married. It still wobbles on one leg. I've always promised to fix it, but never did. That morning, it felt like a metaphor she might quote to her poetry boyfriend later. While she talked about school and the new kid who keeps licking pencils, I just watched her mouth. The same mouth that told me she loved me. The same mouth that, 3 hours earlier, had typed words like thrilling and needed to a man I couldn't name. A man she archived like a secret folder on her desktop. I studied her fingers, the same ones that used to intertwine with mine like they were designed that way. Now they danced around her coffee mug like they had somewhere else to be. I wondered if they ever shook when she texted him. Did she smile at the screen the way she used to smile at me when we were still new? Did she giggle and retype her words 3 times to get the perfect balance of flirty and innocent? I knew she wasn't stupid. She wouldn't use Messenger forever. There were probably texts. Or encrypted apps. Maybe he was saved as a fake name in her contacts. Maybe he wasn't saved at all. Maybe he was her yoga class or the dentist or some other lie with just enough truth to work. And I was too soft to challenge it. I realized then that the version of me she knew, the one who hesitated before confrontation, the one who apologized for things he didn't do, the one who folded laundry quietly while she took 2-hour solo walks, that version was still playing the part. And she was counting on it. Later that afternoon, I faked a migraine, told her I needed to lie down in the spare room. She offered to bring me tea. I said no, locked the door behind me, turned off the lights, and opened my laptop. Back to the archive. I read the thread with 1970 Blackbird in its entirety. Every single line, from light flirting to full-blown daydreaming. She told him about songs that made her think of him. He told her about dreams where they woke up in strange hotels with sunburns and matching bruises. There were dates and hotels mentioned. I cross-checked the days. One of them, she told me she was driving upstate to visit her sister's art gallery. I remember that day because I packed her bag for her. Slipped a note inside. Wrote, "I love you for no reason at all." She never mentioned it. Maybe she didn't even see it. Or maybe she showed it to him. And laughed. What killed me more than anything wasn't the flirting or even the secrecy. It was the chemistry. They fit. Their messages clicked. She was funny with him. Freer. Older. The kind of person I hadn't seen her be in years. With me, it was all updates and calendars, and did you take the bins out? With him, she was fire and wind and lipstick stains and phrases like, "You crack me open" like a lyric. I wouldn't even know how to flirt like that anymore. There was a moment, mid-thread, that nearly undid me. She sent him a voice note. The transcript was saved as metadata. Short. Only 8 seconds. But the file name was chilling. Laughing underscore then underscore whispering. MP3 inch. I played it. Alone. In the dark. My headphones in. She laughed. Then whispered, "If he only knew." I paused the file. Rewound it. Played it again. She laughed. Then whispered, "If he only knew." And I didn't. I didn't know. Until now. I sat on the floor for a long time after that. No crying. No tantrum. Just stillness. That strange static silence again. The pain was too sharp to touch yet, like a burn you don't feel until hours later. I scrolled back to older messages. Looked for any sign that this had started because of me. A crack I'd left. A silence I created. But there was nothing obvious. Just slow erosion. The kind of distance you don't notice until it becomes a canyon. I was still reading when she knocked. "Feeling any better?" she asked, voice muffled through the door. "Little bit," I replied, trying not to sound like a corpse. "Want to go for a walk? It's nice out." I hesitated, then said, "Maybe later." "Okay," she said softly. "Let me know. I'll be in the yard." Footsteps. Fading. I waited a few minutes, then opened the window. Our backyard was small, fenced in, with a hammock we never used and 2 bird feeders she insisted on refilling. I saw her standing near the tree, talking, but not to herself. She was on the phone. Her body language was different. One hand in her back pocket, half smiling, leaning on one foot like a teenager. I tried to zoom in with my phone camera, but couldn't get a clear shot. She walked deeper into the yard, under the tree, out of sight. I waited. She didn't come back for 43 minutes. The 43 minutes she spent outside changed something in me. I can't explain it clearly. It wasn't anger exactly, not even sadness anymore. It was a strange, lucid stillness, like waking up mid-dream and realizing you can control it if you just breathe slowly enough. I stood by the window, eyes fixed on the corner of the fence where she had disappeared, and my mind stopped spinning. For the first time since I found that damned green dot, I wasn't drowning. I was watching. When she finally came back inside, she looked peaceful, almost radiant. Her cheeks had that faint glow she gets after long phone calls, the kind she used to have when she'd talk to her sister or come home from painting workshops. She caught my eye in the hallway and smiled with a kind of weightless calm that made my stomach clench. There was no guilt in that smile. No tension. Just relief. Like she'd released something she'd been holding onto for too long. "Feeling better?" she asked again, voice bright. "Yeah," I said. "Headache's gone." She nodded, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and went upstairs to shower. I listened to the water running, the faint hum of her off-key singing, and all I could think was how wrong it sounded. That same sound had been background noise in my life for nearly a decade. It used to comfort me. Now it was unbearable. Every note was a lie I'd memorized by heart. When she left for work an hour later, I opened the back door and stepped outside. The air still held her perfume. I stood in the same spot she'd been standing during the call and scanned the yard. Nothing special, nothing out of place. But when I looked down, I noticed something half buried in the dirt beside the flower bed. A cigarette butt. Crushed. Slightly damp from the morning dew. Darla doesn't smoke. Never has. She lectures people who do. She even gets dizzy when someone lights one near her. But this one wasn't old. It still had the faint smell of tobacco and mint. I picked it up with a tissue and stared at it for a long time. My hands were steady, too steady, maybe. Something about seeing that small, stupid cigarette told me everything I needed to know. He had been here. In my yard. In my space. I went back inside and did something I never thought I'd do. I opened the security app for our front and back cameras. I'd installed them last year after a break-in a few streets over. She said they made her uncomfortable, said it was weird to feel watched at home. I'd turned off motion notifications for that reason, but the system still kept a cloud log. The first file I opened was from last week, Tuesday night. Nothing at first, just the quiet darkness of our backyard. Then, at 11:38 p.m., motion detected. The camera caught the faint outline of a person climbing over the fence from the side alley. Not breaking in, not running, just moving quietly, like he'd done it before. I watched as the figure walked toward the patio door, paused, then crouched down near the flower bed, right where I'd found the cigarette. The infrared filter couldn't capture his face clearly, but I could see enough. Tall, slim, hoodie, left arm tattooed near the wrist. A triangle. The same symbol I'd seen reflected in that first photograph. My chest tightened. It wasn't a theory anymore. It was real. Flesh and breath and footsteps. He'd been here, and she'd let him in. For a few minutes I just sat there, staring at the paused frame of him under the dim outline of our tree, trying to make sense of how normal everything had felt that night. We'd watched a movie, ordered Thai food, gone to bed like any other Tuesday. And outside, just a few yards away, he had been standing in the same shadows I used to water our plants in. He might have heard us laugh, might have seen our lights go out. I felt sick thinking about it. I saved the video, transferred it to a hidden folder on a flash drive, and labeled it backyard_truth_01. I wasn't sure why I named it like evidence, but that's what it was now. A record, a timestamp of betrayal that no one could gaslight me out of. When she came home that evening, I had every intention of confronting her. I rehearsed it in my head a dozen times while pretending to read on the couch. But when she walked in, humming under her breath, carrying a grocery bag with my favorite brand of chips, I froze again. She looked so normal. She even joked about how she finally remembered the brand I liked. She leaned down and kissed the top of my head as she passed. The moment felt like slow-motion cinema, the kind of thing you'd see before everything explodes. I asked her, carefully, if anyone had stopped by that day. She said no, just the mailman. Then she smiled that gentle smile again. Why? She asked. I shook my head. Just curious. I wanted to tell her about the camera, about the video, about the cigarette. I wanted to say I know, but the words stayed stuck somewhere between my ribs and my throat. Instead, I smiled back and asked about her day. She told me about a student who cried because he lost his eraser. She laughed. I laughed too, because muscle memory is powerful. And for a few seconds, we sounded like a marriage again. Until she looked at her phone, just once, and her face changed. Barely. A half-second shift. But I saw it. The faint flicker of a message that pulled her somewhere I couldn't follow. She turned the screen down on the counter and said she had to check lesson plans in the other room. I watched her go. The same hallway. The same hair swinging gently as she walked. And for the first time, I realized something terrible. She didn't feel guilty at all. Not even a little. Whatever she and this man shared, it wasn't a fling. It was something with roots. Something alive. Later that night, when she fell asleep beside me, I stared at the faint glow of her phone screen lighting up every few minutes. She'd silenced notifications, but I could still see the faint pulse of light from under her pillow. I lay there in the dark, wide awake, thinking about how the human heart can live two lives at once. One in the open, one hidden just under the skin. She shifted in her sleep, turned toward me, and murmured something I couldn't make out. For a moment, her hand brushed mine. I should have pulled away. Instead, I let it stay there, between us, cold and weightless. I replayed the video 8 times. The footage of him crouching beneath our tree like he belonged there. Every time, I paused it right before he stood up and walked out of frame, like if I timed it just right, he'd turn to the camera. Like he'd confess something. Or maybe wink. I don't know what I expected. The camera's motion detection didn't catch him leaving. No footage of the gate opening. No trace of him climbing back over the fence. Just that single, eerie 30-second clip. A man in my backyard. Near my home. Next to the place where we buried our old cat. I told myself to stop watching. But I couldn't. When I finally forced myself to close the laptop, the silence in the house felt different. Too quiet. Thick. Like the walls knew something I didn't. She was in the next room, typing away on her school laptop. Planning spelling quizzes, probably. Or texting him. Or both. Maybe they role-played in code. Vocabulary list equals hotel reservation. Parent-teacher meeting equals him in our bed. I felt like a lunatic even thinking that. But nothing feels irrational once you've seen someone you love smile at a stranger in the dark. I had no real plan. But obsession doesn't need one. I started digging. That night, after she fell asleep, I got back on her Facebook archive. I knew the messages with 1970 Blackbird were done. He hadn't sent anything new since the last one. Let me know when the sky clears. It sounded like a phrase from a spy novel, which fit too well. But I wasn't interested in poetry anymore. I wanted facts. Facebook Messenger stores a user ID with every thread. His was long, ugly, and random, but it was there. I copied it into a blank search bar, opened another tab, and manually typed in Facebook. com/profile. PHP. ID sadface number. It worked. His profile popped up. Mostly private. Few visible photos. No mutual friends. No visible city. But the cover photo was what stopped my heart cold. It was my backyard. I stared at it, blinking, unsure if my brain had short-circuited. It wasn't a recent picture. It was blurry, filtered, taken from a strange angle. The hammock was missing, so I knew it wasn't taken recently. But the rest was unmistakable. That tree. That cracked stone path. That little gnome statue she insisted we keep even after its nose fell off. Someone had taken that photo from inside our fence, facing the house, and made it their profile banner. I wanted to vomit. I clicked his photos. Only 3 were public, all from over a year ago. One of them was just his forearm, tattoo visible. Another was a blurry shot of a window at night, captioned, "You don't even know I'm watching." That wasn't romantic. It was deranged. The third was a photo of her. I didn't recognize it. She was sitting on a picnic blanket, looking down, laughing at something out of frame. Hair tied back. Summer light. That familiar sundress with strawberries. She looked young, safe. But I never took that photo. And I had never seen her wear that dress in any pictures we had. This was intimate. This was his. The post had no caption. Just a single comment from a locked account. She still doesn't know, does she? I sat back, the room spinning. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't some bored housewife meets smooth-voiced poet. This was something else. Darker. There were too many questions now. Who took that photo? How long had he been watching? Had she really invited him in? Or had she gotten caught in something she couldn't back out of? For a brief, almost shameful moment, I wondered if she might be scared. If she'd fallen into something that started as flattery and turned into something else. But then I remembered her voice. Her whisper. Her smile. The lack of fear. The ease of it. No, she wasn't trapped. She was complicit. But what if it had started before that? What if this wasn't 10 months old? What if this went back years, before I noticed anything, before the silences, before the missing towels, before she changed her shampoo? I opened our photo archive on Google Drive. Searched for beach. We'd only gone a handful of times, usually in late summer. I pulled up a folder from 2 years ago. We'd gone to Rhode Island for a long weekend, just the 2 of us. That was the same trip where she said her phone charger stopped working. She'd barely used her phone the whole time. I thought it was romantic at the time. One of the photos made my blood run cold. It was a picture of her standing near the edge of a cliff, arms outstretched, wind blowing her hair across her face. I'd taken that photo. I remember exactly where I was standing when I did. But in the bottom right corner, if you zoomed in, there was a man, far in the distance, by the rocks, wearing black, looking toward her. You wouldn't see it unless you were looking for it. And I was. I zoomed in so far the image pixelated into a smudge. But there he was. Same build. Same posture. Same presence. He'd been there. 2 years ago. And I didn't see it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to her again. both of us separated by a truth she didn't know I'd uncovered. In the dark, she rolled over and pressed against my side, muttering something about a dream. Her hand rested on my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shout. Who is he? When did it start? Did you know he was outside our house? Did you pose for that picture? Did you know he was in Rhode Island? Did you? But I didn't. I stayed still, pretending, just like she had been. The thing about realizing your life has been quietly collapsing for 2 years is that your memories stop working properly. You question everything. Conversations that once felt warm now feel rehearsed. Moments you thought were yours alone get stained by suspicion. That entire trip to Rhode Island, our weekend escape, the one she called her reset button, was now a crime scene in my mind. That picture by the cliff, the one with the man in the distance, had destroyed any illusion I had left of being the only one watching her back then. I couldn't ignore it anymore. This man, whoever he was, had been around far longer than I'd imagined. He wasn't just some recent affair or poetic fling. He was orbiting, slowly, patiently, like a hunter who knew exactly when to move. I opened the photo in a raw image editor and tried to enhance the part with the figure. It didn't give me much, just a rougher outline, better lighting. But it confirmed a few things. Same height range, same posture, a jacket that looked too heavy for the weather that day. He was watching her, or maybe both of us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching only her, and I had been just background noise, a placeholder she hadn't deleted yet. That night, I started digging into the metadata from the Facebook profile. I had his user ID. I had the archived messages. And now I had enough of a timeline to see his pattern. One strange thing I'd missed in the archive. He never initiated contact. Not once. Every thread began with her. Every photo she commented on. Every message she sent first. Every confession, every flirty line, every "are you still awake?" came from her. It wasn't grooming. It wasn't manipulation. It was mutual. And worse, it was hers. I needed more. I needed a real name. I needed a face. So I did something I hadn't done since college. I opened an old private investigator forum I used to lurk on back when I was a paranoid 20-something who thought my ex was cheating because she switched to decaf. She wasn't. She just had acid reflux. The forum had a thread about facial reconstruction from shadows. One post linked to a tool that pulled social account associations using profile ID numbers. I plugged in his Facebook ID. It spit back 3 connected usernames from other platforms. One of them was a Reddit account. I clicked it. The handle was simple at Burnt Englewood. I swear my lungs stopped working for a second. I clicked posts. Nothing recent. But he'd been active 6 months ago. Most of his posts were in obscure subreddits. Nature photography, old camera repairs, analog film scans. It seemed harmless at first, even boring, until I saw one post with a title I'll never forget. Photo series, Watching the Storm from a Distance, Collection 1. It had a link to an Imager album. 10 photos. All of them were of her. Not close-ups. Nothing incriminating to the public eye. Just artsy, voyeur-style snapshots of her walking through farmers' markets, leaning over book tables, sitting on benches. But it was her. Her hair. Her dress. Her laugh caught mid-turn. The kind of shots only someone obsessed would take, or someone who had access. The captions were worse. Slide 2. She always pauses here. Something about the dried lavender. Slide 5. You can't own the sun, but I keep trying. Slide 9. Still with him. But the edges are thinning. She flinches when he says her name. My name. He was talking about me. This man, this ghost with a camera, had been documenting her. Us. Our life. And I never saw him once. Never noticed the click of a shutter. Never caught a stranger's eye lingering too long. I was sleepwalking through my own damn marriage while someone else wrote poetry about her elbows and the way she touched bread in bakeries. I clicked on his Reddit comment history. It got darker. In a thread about romantic disobedience, he wrote, "The most honest thing I ever did was wait outside her life long enough for her to open the door without realizing it." Another thread about photography ethics. If you're close enough to be noticed, you're doing it wrong. You have to let her forget she's being seen. There was one final post that made me close the laptop and walk away. Just 5 words. No context. No replies. Just this. I've already been inside once. That was posted 4 months ago. 4 months ago. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I stood in the hallway just listening to the sounds of my house. The fridge humming, the water heater groaning, the faint click of her laptop keys upstairs. I walked toward the staircase, slow, cautious. Listened at the edge of the steps. She was on a call. I couldn't hear much. Just her voice, soft and sweet. Then a laugh I hadn't heard in months. The kind of laugh you save for someone who gets you. I didn't recognize any words, but I recognized the tone. I wanted to storm in, scream, demand names, but I didn't. Instead, I turned and walked out the front door into the cool night, heart beating like it wanted out of my chest. I stood at the edge of the street and looked at my house, the windows, the walls, the bedroom lights still on, and wondered how many times he'd stood here too, watching, photographing, waiting. There was something else I realized then. I wasn't the only one being lied to. She didn't just hide him from me. She hid me from him. There were things he didn't know. There had to be. She was compartmentalizing us. Two worlds running in parallel. But lines like that always blur eventually. And when they do, things break. I told myself I wasn't going to open the second link. I sat there on the couch with the laptop glowing against my knees, telling myself over and over that I'd gone far enough, that knowing more would only make things worse. But curiosity is gravity. You can't reason with it. At 6:17 p.m., I clicked the link that led to Collection 2. It wasn't on Imager this time. The link redirected to a password-protected page on a photography hosting site I'd never heard of. The title at the top read, Request Timed Out/Private Archive. My own words. The phrase I'd been using in my head for weeks. My chest went cold. He'd used it as a title, my title, like he could hear me think. I tried the most obvious password first, her birthday. It worked. The page opened into a grid of 24 photographs. These weren't distant voyeur shots like before. They were personal, intimate, the kind that required access, timing, and the quiet of unlocked doors. The first image was of our kitchen, taken from a high angle, maybe through the window over the sink. A coffee mug in the foreground, steam still rising. My mug. I could see the reflection of a person holding the camera, but the head was cut off. Only the arm was visible, the one with the triangle tattoo. The next image nearly stopped my heart. It was me, asleep on the couch, blanket half off, mouth slightly open. There was no way he took that through glass. The shot was too close, too clear. He'd been inside the house. I flipped through the sequence, each photo worse than the last. Her sitting cross-legged on our bed, hair still wet from a shower. Our living room with the TV paused on a frame from the office. The hallway mirror reflecting her hugging someone whose face was cropped out, but the shape of his shoulder matched mine. For a second I thought maybe it was me, until I saw the watch on his wrist. I don't own a watch. At the bottom of the page, there was a caption. The moment she forgets he's there is the moment she belongs entirely to me. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound was too loud, like a gunshot in the quiet room. My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked around the living room, suddenly aware of every corner, every possible hiding place for a camera. I started checking, behind picture frames, under the TV stand, inside the potted plant she bought last spring. Nothing. But paranoia doesn't need proof, it just needs air. When Darla came home, I was still sitting on the floor surrounded by half-moved furniture. She blinked at the mess. "What are you doing?" she asked. Her voice was light, almost amused. I wanted to tell her everything, the photos, the accounts, the man in the rocks, but something in her expression stopped me. It wasn't fear or guilt this time. It was fatigue, like she already knew what I'd found, and she was too tired to pretend anymore. "Looking for something," I said. She dropped her bag by the door and sighed. "You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're scaring me, Ephraim." I laughed, a dry, cracked sound. "You're scared?" She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said softly, "You've been different lately." It was the kind of line therapists teach people to say when they're trying not to start a fight. She was careful, deliberate, like she was talking to a wounded animal. "If something's wrong, we can talk." That was the moment I almost told her. But instead, I asked, "Who's Blackbird?" She froze. Just a fraction of a second, the smallest pause, but it was enough. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes changed. Her pupils tightened, then softened, like a camera refocusing. She tried to smile. "What?" she said too lightly. "You heard me," I said. "Blackbird. 1970 Blackbird. Who is he?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Walked past me into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and twisted the cap off with shaking hands. You've been reading my messages. You left them, I said. You left everything. Her breathing quickened. You had no right. You had no right bringing him into my house. She didn't answer. She just stood there, bottle half raised, eyes glossy. And then, quietly, she said, You don't understand. Then make me, I said. Please. She set the bottle down and leaned against the counter. It's not what you think, she said. He's not. She stopped herself. Looked at the floor. You wouldn't believe me anyway. Try me. She laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was exhaustion. You really think this started because I was bored? That he's just some guy? She shook her head slowly. He was around before you, Ephraim. I felt the floor tilt. What are you talking about? Her voice dropped to a whisper. He finds people. Photographs them. It's what he does. I didn't know who he was when I met him. It just followed me. I tried to stop it. I thought moving, marrying, changing everything would make it go away. Are you saying he's stalking you? I said, incredulous. You messaged him. You met him. I know, she said, tears in her eyes. That's how he works. He makes you feel like you started it. Like it was your idea. Like you're choosing it. And by the time you realize you're not, she broke off. It's too late. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But everything I'd seen said otherwise. You expect me to think this guy's been haunting your life like a ghost? Her eyes met mine. Then why did he use your words for the title? She asked softly. Why does he know what you say when you're alone? The question hung between us like smoke. I didn't have an answer. Because she was right. He shouldn't have known that phrase. No one could have. Unless there was something else going on. Something that made the idea of a simple affair almost comforting by comparison. She looked at me like she wanted to say more, but instead she whispered, Don't open anything else from him. Promise me. Then she walked upstairs and closed the bedroom door, leaving me alone with the echo of that impossible question. I waited until she was asleep. I sat in the dark for nearly an hour, watching the bedroom door, listening for the shift in her breathing. That long, rhythmic exhale she only does in deep sleep. Even then, I hesitated. The warning she left me kept echoing in my head. Don't open anything else from him. But I had to, because I needed to know whether this was a love story gone wrong, or something much worse. The last folder in the archive was named after me. Just one word, Ephraim. No date, no timestamp, no context. Just my name, sitting there in white text on a black background like a gravestone waiting to be engraved. I clicked. Inside, exactly 5 files. For images, 1 audio recording. The first photo was a scan of a Polaroid, an old one. Grainy, yellowed at the edges. I recognized the scene instantly. A bookstore in Vermont we visited 4 years ago on a spontaneous road trip. Darla had dragged me there because they sold coffee and first editions. In the photo, I'm standing at the counter, holding a book, mid-smile. I don't remember anyone else being in that store with us. Second photo, me again, sitting in a park with my laptop. Same year, same trip. I'm typing, focused. Darla is off to the side, back turned. The photo was taken from behind a bush or tree, just barely hidden. Whoever took it had been following us the entire weekend. Third photo, our wedding. Outside the chapel, during cocktail hour. I'm laughing, glass in hand, oblivious. There's a blur of movement behind me. Someone standing far off in the background, watching. I zoomed in, sharpened. It was him. Not clearly, but it was him. I didn't even know this man existed back then. Fourth photo, our front porch. Nighttime. Darla is standing in the doorway, holding the screen open, looking out into the dark. Waiting. And the final file, the audio. Just 5 seconds long. I pressed play. Static. Then. He was never the placeholder. You were. The voice wasn't mine. Wasn't hers. Definitely not his. Either. Or maybe it was altered, distorted into something not quite human. But it chilled me. The words weren't just cruel. They were intentional. Like a knife made to fit one exact wound. I almost deleted it on the spot. But instead, I unplugged the laptop and walked outside. The sky was clear. Not a cloud in sight. Darla always said she loved nights like this, like the whole sky was listening. I sat on the porch steps, laptop on my knees, and thought about everything. The camera footage, the archived messages, the photos, the voice note, her face when I asked about him. I thought about the pain, the confusion, the way truth has a way of folding itself around fear like a tight knot. And then I thought about the simplest thing, how we used to laugh. I don't mean happy couple laugh. I mean ridiculous, stupid, late night, inside joke laugh. The kind that leaves you breathless. That sound had gone missing. Not all at once. Just gradually. And maybe that was the real betrayal. Not hers. Not his. But ours. Mine too. The slow erosion of attention. The comfort that curdles into neglect. I closed the laptop. Not because I was done, but because I had finally decided to be done. The next morning, I told her everything I'd found. Not with anger. Not with blame. Just truth. And she cried. Not dramatic tears. Quiet ones. Like someone who had finally been caught in a story too heavy to keep carrying. We talked. For 3 hours. And when it was done, the truth, the lies, the blurred lines, the stranger with the camera, we didn't yell. We didn't separate. We sat on the floor with cold coffee and brisket curled between us, and we finally started asking the questions we'd been avoiding for years. It turned out she had blocked him. 3 weeks ago. After that night in the yard, she'd made a choice. She just hadn't told me yet. She said she was afraid of what it would look like. Of what I'd think. Of what I'd become. But the truth is, I'd already become something else long before he entered the picture. So had she. And somehow, weirdly, impossibly, that shared failure became the bridge back to us. We didn't erase what happened, but we started again. We changed the locks. We deleted the archives. We agreed on full transparency, not just for phones and accounts, but for feelings. Even the ugly ones. And slowly, like something thawing, I started to recognize her again. Not the woman from the old photos, but someone newer. More honest. More bruised, maybe, but real. She left a note on my desk this morning. 4 words. Handwritten. No more timed out. And I believed her. Final update. This is probably my last post. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe we'll fall apart anyway. Maybe this was a brief piece before the final crack. But maybe, just maybe, this was what it took to finally wake up. To anyone reading this. If something feels off, don't wait for the green dot. Don't wait for the archived messages. Don't wait for the silence to become unbearable. Ask. Speak. Be brave before the damage settles in. And if you're lucky, you'll hear the truth in time to fix it. If not, you'll survive it anyway. I did. Ephraim.